Welcome back to the Pro Football Pod. Coach Justin and Austin joining you with another week covering the best division in football. Pretty sure we all agree, right, Austin? Best division?
That's up for debate.
I mean, they have your favorite player. So
It's going to be the most competitive. That in the AFC North, I think, this year.
Hell yeah.
I
You
think
can't sleep on
people,
that NFC East, though.
What people don't realize until they realize it is the amount of talent at receiver in this division. Like, the top tier talent, 5 of the top 10 guys are in this division. Like, it's not 5, maybe 4, but still lots and lots of talent, top tier talent, AFC East. Gotta love it.
It's a great fantasy division. Like, you could draft only AFC East players and win your fantasy league this year.
I don't know about only, because I might want some running backs that aren't just AFC East. Because there's some good running backs. We'll
think
talk
about it,
that,
though. It means you're having to go Diggs and Tyreek really early, or Waddle.
You can't possibly get those two.
Or Garrett Wilson.
I've seen Diggs fall into like 11 or 12. So in a 10 team, you might be able to get those two.
But Tyreek's going earlier than 5.
He's going so early.
Yeah.
For Diggs to wrap around is the hard part. You end up getting like a Mon-Ra or something like that as your second. Man, this is the division I've been excited to talk about because of all of the little gems that I feel like we're able to see. Me and Justin specifically, we cover the Dolphins so heavily on all the preseason stuff. I mean, just everything all year long. So I think we start off with the Dolphins. First player everyone wants to hear about is Tua, quarterback 11, ADP 92. Now, I've seen him going a lot higher in all of my drafts, so I don't believe that ADP. I also have a Dolphins fan in probably every single draft I'm in, no matter what, besides me. So I personally love ADP. I'm going to go a round or two early as well because I expect him not to be a top. I expect him to at least be a top 10 quarterback.
So you're taking him as your number one, like your first starting quarterback?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't wait for him that long to get him.
The only reason his ADP is so low and like he's going so far down in the list of quarterbacks is he doesn't give you that rushing for fantasy, and it's the health. Like, you just can't trust that he's going to be healthy the whole season for you, especially at the end of the year. So, I mean, I get it, but it's also one of those to where it's like, that's fine. I'll wait on him. I'll snatch him up. And for whatever weeks he is healthy, I have a top 5 fantasy quarterback.
He's definitely someone I'm getting as my second quarterback if I'm grabbing one early. Like, I love to have him there. But, like, you got to get one of those top-tier quarterbacks.
If I'm getting someone like Josh Allen, then I'm not getting a second quarterback. I'm not drafting one, not in the draft. I'm going to wait until week 7 or 8 until we're getting closer to his bye and then pick one up then. There's a level of risk there, but the reality is I spent a 3rd or 4th round pick on Josh Allen. So for me to spend that type of draft capital, I can't draft 2 quarterbacks. Even if I drafted them with my last pick, I probably could have found something better. So for Tua, if I was to draft Tua at quarterback 11, I'm going another quarterback almost immediately after. Not the next round, because I'm sure that there's some running back, Khalil Herbert, somebody that's fallen that I'd like to snag. But as soon as I don't see a huge value grab, I'm going to grab another safe quarterback like a Geno Smith and Aaron Rodgers. Deshaun Watson is going after Tua. So there's a lot of available options there still once Tua's been snagged up if he gets taken early. But if I get him, I don't have to get somebody with him.
You got to have that safety net for him, because the last couple of years have shown that. But, when healthy, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions last year. You love that ratio. Led the league with 105.5 passer rating. Top in the league. That's almost perfect as far as his passer rating goes. He was one of the top PFF guys. If you go by that, he was one of the just every statistical accurate category, he was one of the top 3 guys in it. Just his efficiency last year was on point. Now, people are going to point back to the San Francisco game and the Chargers game, and teams did seem like they started to figure out the Dolphins' offense a little more, but that's not necessarily on Tua when it's a timing based offense and the timing is being thrown off of that. Like, yes, you would like to see a little more of off script stuff for him. I know he has the injury stuff, but there's so many times where I see him rolling out and he has 10 yards of open field in front of him and he'll throw the 3-yard check down just because he's not wanting to run that ball right there. And my thing, just get the yard, slide down real quick, and just get the easy stuff. I want to see more of that this year from him, but I don't see it coming.
You want to see him be a little scrappy, you know? How do you guys feel about that interview? Him talking.
I liked it. I liked it. I think that when everyone is overblowing the him saying "keep my name out of your mouth," like what he said was, I mean, Ryan.
I like
Clark,
that part. I like that part.
That was the part that I thought was like funny, I guess. Because of the way he said it. He's just such a nice guy, dude. Like,
yeah,
he's
the way he
so
comes off,
friendly, and he's like trying to be hard. I think that he's a dog. He's got scrappiness in his game. That 7-touchdown game against the Ravens is why I'm drafting Tua. That is capable of happening at any time because of his 2 receivers. I think that the number 1 stack in the league right now, because of where you can draft Tua, is Dolphins stack. And that's either Hill or Waddle. Because either one of them stacked with Tua is going to have a bunch of value. If you miss on Hill and you get Waddle, and then you can take Tua in the 8th or 9th round, you're sitting very pretty on a weekly production standpoint from 2 very important positions. So I don't think that there's anybody that I would... Chase and Burrow, I've got to go 1st round and 3rd round on my stack to be able to get it. And it's the same amount of value as Waddle or Hill and Tua. So that's where I stand on Tua. That's where I see his value, is stacking him with another player. Last year, Gesicki was seen as a potential stack. If it's not Hill or Waddle, then I wouldn't even worry about it. Who else? I mean, obviously those 2 players, ADP 7 for Tyreek, wide receiver 3, and then ADP 24 for Waddle, wide receiver 11. It's hard to say that you're undervalued at wide receiver 3, but I predict Tyreek having the best season this year of wide receivers in the NFL, with Waddle being on his team. I expect him to get 2,000 yards and 12 touchdowns.
I feel like the only reason he's at 3 is because those 2 guys have bigger vultures on their team. Justin Jefferson, Waddle is a bigger vulture than
Agreed.
Justin Jefferson has, and same with Jamar Chase. So I could see, I like him at 3. I'm definitely taking him at 3, even over most running backs. Like, I take him early. He's my guy. My safe bet guy.
So what about the running backs, Justin? Who are you taking?
If I'd take any of them, it would be A-Chain. But honestly, I wouldn't touch any of them. Like, you put him on your roster as a bench guy, but
you're getting him 15th round in a 10 team. I mean, that's last pick, and one of them is going to start. So, like, I love you saying A-Chain. He's the one that you have to spend the most capital on. Running back 40 instead of 44 and 45. Mostert's still the starter for me. I think early, like in a draft situation, I think that drafting Mostert is worth it.
Are you actually drafting him? I'm not touching the Dolphins backfield.
My last pick? I mean, somebody should be drafting in every league Jeff Wilson, A-Chain, and Mostert. And whoever is the one that gets a bunch of value for free. Like, if any of those guys are sitting on the waiver wire and you get to pick them up after week 1, then your league just made a massive mistake. Anything else to talk about for the Dolphins? Any other value we see? I mean, the 3 big, huge players that you have to kind of spend the capital on, you get Tua. Durham Smythe is not even considered a tight end by fantasy football players. I don't think that the Dolphins are going to throw to the tight end very much, so I don't think that having their tight end is worth it. So, yeah, I mean...
Maybe Cedric Wilson? He could be like a nice sleeper. Like, if Tyreek is down or if Waddle's down, like, that's just, a nice plug-and-play guy.
The hard thing is with Barrios being added and Eric Izukama that they drafted last year in the like second or third round. They've got a lot of young players at the receiver position. I think that if Hill goes down, Waddle's going to get the most work. Like if Waddle goes down, Hill's going to get the most work. If both of them go down, I mean the team's going to have a hard time passing the ball because there's just going to be not enough separation. I think for Tua to have the success he needs.
I would just like to see the Dolphins have like a nice big tight end. Like you guys just are so small to me. It just kills me. I know you're fast, but like it's just such a height advantage on that team. I feel like. But how do you feel about the Dolphins season in a whole? Like last year, their over under was like 9. Win total was like 9, and they hit 9. This year it's 9.5.
I feel like they would have won a lot more games if Tua, played a lot more games last
Most
year.
definitely.
I feel like the biggest thing for this year is going to be the first like 3 or 4 weeks. The Dolphins are really going to have to come out hard. I think we play Chargers week 1, right in
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
Everyone
So-
wants to see that matchup game 1.
Everyone that I know, they're all saying Dolphins can't even compete against the Chargers. And last year, I'm pretty sure we beat them. So we lost that game.
That was the game we got shit on right after San Francisco.
That's right.
That West Coast trip. Yeah, the Chargers. I mean,
Yeah, that was
we
that
had
whole
some plays, but Tua looked like
Oh,
shit
wait.
the whole game. Like it was. So I mean, for Smythe, like as a tight end, he's one of those like take a flyer on him as far as betting purposes for any time touchdown because his odds are going to be great, and
Mhm.
he's probably going to be good for one every few weeks. So that's about it. I mean, outside of Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle, I mean, I really don't see any fantasy value on the Dolphins because Mostert's not going to get enough bell cow work for him to really
He's
be
not gonna
like a
get
guy.
15.
Exactly. So for me, it's A-Chain I would take in a, dynasty league. But as far as drafting any of them this year, as much as I hate to say it, I would draft Mostert to stash him on my bench and just see how many carries he's working with. And you're hoping the Dolphins go to the run game a little more this year, but I see it being a committee thing. And if you've been against Patriots running backs in the past, I see it being the same thing this year for the Dolphins.
I think that the 49ers always have at least one running back that is fantasy relevant. And that with Mike trying to bring the 49ers run style over here, again, if all 3 of these guys aren't rostered, I'm not saying that you should draft all 3 of them on your team, but take one. And if that's
it's
the one
Achane,
that
I
gets the
think.
most work, well, see,
Just
that's not the
'cause-
one I would draft if
Just
none of
because
them
he's
are
got
rostered.
the least amount of work put to him.
A-Chain is not going to get anything real work-wise until week 4 or 5. They're going to slowly bring him in, especially with the shoulder
But
injuries dealing with
where
right
you're
now.
drafting him, that's the value. That's kind of the sneaky value picks is like late in the rounds getting those rookies that could pop off. We don't know if he's be a top 5 running back in the league. I mean,
He's
we
not.
would see
Not
these
this
things
year.
coming out of camp.
Yeah, he's not going
Like-
to get the work this year.
But sometimes
so-
it's a switch that.
Second best fantasy value team in the AFC East for me isn't the Bills. It's the Jets, dude. They have just because it's their running
By far.
back, it's their wide receiver. Even Conklin, I think, is going to have some level of value just because of Rodgers being there. Josh Allen is great, but Josh Allen's always been known as being, it's not that he's a selfish player, it's just that he gets his fantasy-wise, but his team doesn't all get theirs. Because of his work with his legs, like Rodgers is going to be able to spread it out so much more. Now, Justin, Breece Hall or Dalvin Cook, are you going one, going the other? Or are you staying away from both?
I think I would take Brees first.
Okay.
And I know he's got the injury, but Dalvin
He's
coming
healthy.
in, yes, he's the vet, but I see Brees, he's more explosive. So I would go
Very.
with Brees.
Do you
I
think
know
that
we
they
can't-
work Dalvin like Minnesota did, where they try to give him the ball 10 to 12 times a game? I mean, they're not paying him like $12 million or anything. I think they're only giving him was it 8?
I think it's 10 or 11.
With incentive, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes it really interesting. It's like they're not gonna just feed him this rock because of how much they're paying him. It seems like they're gonna split that backfield a little bit and like really push Brees through, and which I'm fine with. I think they can both get theirs because of how talented they are. But if one goes down, you know the other one's gonna excel so much. Look how much Aaron Rodgers and AJ Dillon did well on the Packers with Aaron. It's it's hard to like mesh these things together in our minds and like see it. But like I do think that one of the best handcuffs to get is Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook because of how late Dalvin's going. It's kind of ridiculous because of the trade scenario.
Yeah, I
his
mean,
ADP.
Brees is going to give you the passing effect. So in a PPR league, he is much more valuable, and that's why you see him going higher than Dalvin. I think Dalvin will be a vulture for touchdowns on Brees.
Yep.
I think
I
that's
think
where you see Dalvin coming in.
even a half PPR, I'm still leaning Brees Hall, just for like the amount of work that he did last year in the first 5 or 6 weeks in the passing game and how unbelievably unstoppable he looked like with Zach Wilson and whoever the else was playing the Jets quarterback last year throwing him the ball. I think Rodgers is he's gonna love that. But I don't think that they've showed that off.
Disrespect to your backup quarterback right there,
Mike
White.
I mean,
Disrespect. Come on.
he is a backup quarterback for a reason. So I think now,
One of the best in the league.
Brees Hall, ADP 40. I think that if Dalvin Cook wasn't there, that would be the biggest steal of the draft. And the only reason he was going there before Dalvin was because of the injury. His ADP didn't drop too much. It did drop some after Dalvin got signed.
You know,
For me, I'm a little bit afraid of both of these guys at their current ADP. I want to see Brees drop into the 5th or 6th round. I want to have a little bit more of my core established, and maybe have this guy as my running back 2. But if I'm going like 3 receivers and then getting Brees Hall as my running back 1, I'm terrified. And even if I go Dalvin at 64, it's a lot to spend without knowing the way the offense is going to work. I think that Garrett Wilson, ADP 18, wide receiver 9, is so much more that you're spending, but he's so much safer of a pick.
100%.
This guy is a dominant receiver. He
Now,
looks unstoppable.
my only problem with the Jets overall this year is, now, granted, last year their offensive line was decimated by injuries, but you look
this
at
year
the
it
guys.
doesn't look good.
You look at the guys they brought in: Aaron Rodgers, Alan Lazard, Mecole Hardman, Randall Cobb, who's just really a vet presence, and then Dalvin Cook. Like, you brought in 5 offensive players, and they were all skill positions. Now, they needed it, but you really didn't do anything much more to like completely, I guess, ensure the depth of that line. So Jets fans are aware. It's the same thing really with almost every team. It's, it 1 or 2 guys go down, your whole offensive line is absolutely effed for the whole season. And we've seen the videos out of Hard Knocks, I think, is kind of shading it a little bit, because I've seen other videos out of like those joint practices and stuff where Aaron Rodgers is literally running for his life like every single play. And they showed a little bit of it in Hard Knocks, but they didn't
Not
show
really.
as much as I really think they should have, to be like, hey, look, there's a problem here. So, like I said, that to me is the one holdup of their whole team, is going to be that offensive line. If that offensive line holds up and Mekhi Becton becomes what he should have been, playing that right tackle spot this year for him, the Jets are very well could be everything that everyone thinks they're going to be this year, because all the talent they added to that team. But I also look at the wide receiver room. They've got Alan Lazard. He's never really been a game breaker. He just has that trust. So for me, it's like you really need to hope that Garrett Wilson stays healthy.
Now,
you see,
ADP 137 for Lazard. What do you guys think of that?
Oof.
This 13th round, I'd take him. But I think he's very touchdown dependent this year.
Yeah.
Extremely.
There's just so many people in there that, like, how could you take him that late? I don't know.
Well,
It's definitely interesting, but like,
I think it's correct value on where he's going, but it's also just because, you're not going to start him unless you're in a deep league. Like maybe in a 12-team league, I could see him going a little higher. But in a 10-team league, like he's probably on your bench every week, unless you're needing to sub in for bye weeks or Garrett Wilson gets hurt, something like that. But I think he's just super touchdown dependent this year. I could see him finishing with like 600-700 yards, but also like 7 to 8 touchdowns.
I mean, Aaron brought him over for a reason.
That's what I'm saying. If you're gonna have the trust with the guy, it's gonna be in the red zone, or it's gonna be when you need a first down because you're gonna trust the guy to find the window.
Yeah. Have you heard about their D line though? It's looking pretty nice over there.
Their whole defense
Quentin
is
Williams.
legit. Their secondary's legit. Their defensive line's legit. Like, I guess their linebackers could use an upgrade, but I mean, they're not complaining. Like their defense is a top 5.
If Christian Kirksey goes there,
I wouldn't be shocked, bro. Would not be shocked.
Robert Salas.
Exactly what's gonna happen, dude?
Only played his starters for 7 snaps.
You know who Robert Saleh has a very good relationship with? D'Amico Ryans.
He got asked about why he only started his starting D lineman for 7 snaps, and he goes, "They're ready."
Yeah.
Like, they're ready.
I mean, he keeps saying it. The team goes how they go. The defense goes how the defensive line goes, and like he keeps saying it because it's so important. Like, from a fantasy standpoint, if you've got defensive players, think about taking one of these defensive linemen. Like, there's so many talented players on that defense, and there's so many defensive players on that lineman, like all the talented players on that defensive line, that Quinnen Williams he's gonna do really good. But the biggest thing he's gonna do is he's gonna draw a lot of attention. So these edge guys are gonna be able to just go free a lot. I'm excited for the Jets because I think that they're the Jets, and I think that they're gonna look like the Jets at the end of the year. So I really just hope that the Dolphins don't look like the Dolphins at the end of the year.
I think you hope the Jets look like the typical Jets at the end of the year. I think that's the story about them, though. Is everybody is hyping them up right now for the sole purpose of they cannot wait to shit on them at the end of the season if they do not succeed. Like, that's what it is. Like, and it's a win-win. It's a win-win for the media because they can either just pile on them if it doesn't work, or if it does work, holy hell, the Jets have just done the impossible and they're back on the mountaintop for the first time in 60 years. Like, they did it. Like, so it's a win-win for the media for the Jets at the end of the year, regardless. That's why they were forced onto Hard Knocks.
Now, for Austin's favorite team, there are some very solid players. You have to spend a lot of capital to get the players that are very solid, and there's a lot of traps. The Bills' offense has been full of traps, fantasy-wise, every year. Isaiah McKenzie, Gabe Davis last year were huge traps. Devin Singletary. Luckily, nobody ever thought Zach Moss was going to do anything. But, like, just in general, they've been on this cusp of they're supposed to be great. They're supposed to be great. They're supposed to be great. And you're paying for that supposed greatness, but they don't pan out. Now, this year's different. There's no expectations for the Bills. Gabe Davis has fallen to the 10th round as the second receiver on an offense that's going to have the ball in their hands a lot. Their defense is great.
Steal.
Their offense is great. So there are potential values on the Jets. On the Bills, you just got to be careful. You don't want to reach too much for Gabe Davis because you have to have him because he's not that guy. You don't have to have him. But in the 10th round, tons of value. So who do you guys like the most? Like, who is it that you're trying to really, like, this is who I need from this team?
For their value, I love James Cook. ADP 78, running back 30. He's one of those guys to where you're not drafting him to be your running back 1 or your running back 2, but he's also a guy from your bench that will give you running back 2 value throughout the season. And that, where you're able to get him, his value. I got bit by the Gabe Davis bug last year. Took him really early in almost every draft I did because of how he finished the year the year before, torched the Chiefs in the playoffs. And he was solid, like had a really solid year, but it was not at all what his ADP was. His ADP is probably more accurate this year, so I wouldn't be mad at Gabe at the 10th round as well. So, I mean, I do see the value at where these guys are going. I'd like that, we're not looking at it and it's like it was last year to where all Bills players are just absolutely hyped up and going way earlier than they should. I think they're all going about where their value dictates. I think Dawson Knox is getting a little hate.
I actually think that, and it's because Kincaid's going ADP 124, tight end 13. That is just, I get that the guy is a super huge talent and that they paid a first round draft pick for him. He's still a tight end, a rookie tight end. I'm sorry, rookie tight ends don't do well in the NFL, and it's not because of them. It's because of the NFL. The position is very difficult. It takes a lot of strength and speed and athleticism that they have to build into on top of the technique. So I don't know if I'm taking any Bills tight ends this year. I think that Diggs has a lot of value. Gabe Davis has a lot of value. My favorite player is Damian Harris. I think that ADP 161, running back 47, nobody really knows what this guy's going to do on this team. They expect him to maybe be a Zach Moss to like Devin Singletary with James Cook playing that Singletary role. I think that the Bills realize that Damian Harris is so much better than that, though. He was a number 1 running back 2 years ago.
He can't stay healthy. That's his problem.
Agreed. But they're not going to workhorse him either. I think that you're getting him, because for him, he can put up 20-point games if he's the sole running back. But all I need
Jamal
him to
Williams.
all I need him to do is get touchdowns.
Jamal
or 2 touchdowns
Williams.
A game with like 30 or 40 yards, and that's it. He can be my flex.
He'll finish the season with like 600 yards, but he could finish with like 12 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But you also have the ultimate vulture in Josh Allen because they love running the ball with him inside the 5, which rightfully so. He's 6'4", 225. Like, yeah, I would.
Austin, stand up and show the people what that looks like. No.
6'4", 225.
Yeah.
It goes up, baby.
Let them know what that.
It goes. You'll just be seeing my dick.
So, Austin, did you want to say anything else about the Bills? Anybody you wanted to cover?
Nah, Bills Mafia, baby. Let's ride.
Enough said.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we have the 4th best team in the division by most people's summary. I think that it's hard to hate on the Patriots too much because of last year, because they got rid of everybody from last year, and now they have Bill O'Brien, who's a real offensive mind, and maybe they're actually going to air the ball sometimes. But I think that everyone is still super sleeping on Ramondre Stevenson. ADP 31, running back 11. This guy, even with Zeke being there, he's going to just get so much work in the passing game, in the running game. Like, he is a 3-down running back that has now somebody to help relieve him, instead of before he was just the only guy. I was a little bit worried with him being the only guy because running backs just don't stand up to that anymore. So I think that as far as Patriots players, Mac Jones, I'm not touching. Zeke, I'll handcuff. Devontae Parker's just, he's just taken so late that like he could do anything and have value, but I'm not drafting him. These are guys I'm going to look at. I'm going to keep my eye on throughout the season, but that's
I saw you shake.
Ramondre
I thought you shake your head. Nah, I see you shaking your head, man. What's wrong with Zeke, bro? That man had 12 touchdowns last year. I mean,
he'll finish with.
But if you go
400 yards,
if you're on the goal line, he'll get you in the end zone.
It's 400 yards. Like, so that's what I'm saying, though. You're praying for a touchdown every week just to give you a possibility of maybe 10 points.
You've seen how Bill Belichick uses his running backs, though. You don't think he's going to use Ezekiel Elliott?
Also uses
he has
the
this
more
new shiny
effective
toy.
running back. And with Ramondre Stevenson, he, at this stage in their careers, is more effective to me than Zeke is. He's more effective in the passing game. So in a PPR league, it's absolutely going to be him. Zeke only averaged 3.7 yards per carry last year and had almost 100 more carries than Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard had 300 more yards than him. Zeke's not effective. So he's super touchdown dependent.
Not effective in the middle of the field.
But that's where fantasy is. Like, you need those yards.
If he can collect 2 touchdowns,
targets. We need
This isn't a
carries
guy that you
game.
have to spend a lot of draft value on. Like, this is a guy you get with your last pick of the draft. Like, it's a guy who can get you 2 touchdowns in any given game because this team's going to get to the goal line and the
And
coach is safe about the way he plays things.
I'm glad you said that, Austin. If he got me 2 touchdowns in a game, that's the best that he's going to do all year long. And that is at most 14, 15 points that he's going to get me in the whole game. Because he's not going to get 100 yards. He's not going to get 40 yards. He's going to get like 15 or 20 yards with 2 touchdowns. So the best that I can hope for all season long, I'm going to start him whenever I start him is 14 points, 15 points. That's why I don't want to pick him there. There's so many explosive young guys like Devin Achane, even Mostert. Like Mostert is getting picked at the same time as Zeke, and Mostert is a starting running back. He's at least a part of this committee that's all going to get handed the ball equally instead of just being touchdown dependent. Jamal Williams is going way earlier. And whenever we cover the Saints, we're going to talk about how you probably shouldn't draft this guy because the only reason he's getting drafted is because of how many touchdowns he got last year, and that's going to regress this year. Zeke is the same thing, dude. It's the same.
You can't say things like
you'll
they're
put 'em
certain.
on your roster
You know,
because
I'm
you
not
say
certain.
things like they are certain, but like this is all up in the air. I do feel like this
agree.
man is going to eat on that goal line for this Patriots offense. Like, and he's just someone that's it's a name. Like,
But
late
I
in
do
those
see what
rounds,
Colby's saying, though. You're figuring if at max, if say he gets 50 yards in a game, that's 5 points. Without a touchdown, that's 5 points for the game. You just got that nothing for that game from him. He scores a touchdown with those 50 yards. You're still looking at a max of 11 points right there. Maybe a couple receptions, so okay, 12 points. Like that's my thing is unless something happens to Ramondre, Zeke's a great handcuff. I'll handcuff him.
that's what I'm talking about.
And like you said, I do agree with at the end of your draft, you're just filling out your roster, throw him on there. Why not? But other than Ramondre, there's not one Patriots person I'm looking at and it's like, ooh, I'm interested in Juju this year. Let me see what he does. Nope, because I don't trust Mac Jones. And I don't know how much Juju is going to jive with the Patriots as a person.
In the 10th round, I'm taking Juju, who's never played a snap on this team and was worthless in fantasy the last 3 years. Like, no thank you. Next year, you're going to get Juju in the last round of drafts. And then he'll have value. He'll be worth it. That's the thing that I think that people that are watching the pod need to realize, that we're not saying that we'll never draft this player ever. We're saying that we're never going to take them at the value point that everyone's agreeing that they're taken. If they're fall back to where their value really is, then we're going to take them. But the real key is finding those guys that everyone thinks isn't going to do as good, but you know they're going to do better. And that's where, Austin, I say it like I know that it's going to happen. I have conviction in the way that I see things because of the amount of work I put into building that conviction, building the way that I see these players, like from all the time watching them, hearing other people's opinions. And
now, the one thing I will throw out there is, and this will just kind of add to Austin's point about Zeke, is everything in this offseason has shown that the Patriots are trying to go back to that ground and pound play action offense. Bringing Bill O'Brien back in tells you also that's the style of offense they're going to be looking at. Remember Bill O'Brien, think back to the Arian Foster days. He had Matt Schaub looking as a competent quarterback because of an effective run game, solid wide receivers that are good at the catch point, which Juju and Devontae, Hunter Henry, and Mike Gesicki, they've got good possession guys. Yep. So I will say that I would not be shocked if halfway through the year, you're noticing Ramondre's getting about 18 to 20 carries a game, and Zeke's also putting in about 12 to 14. Like, I wouldn't be shocked by it because Bill has always been, and just the style of the league has been, when everybody is flowing one way, you start to push the other. When everybody was ground and pound, you started seeing these teams like the Rams with the greatest show on turf. Nobody had defenses built to stop those passing offenses. So they were just tearing it up. Well, nobody has any defenses to stop a ground and pound running game. Not one team. The Philadelphia Eagles, because of that defensive line,
And the
maybe.
Lions.
Or the
And the Lions.
49ers. I would say the 49ers maybe,
It's
but
whoever has
that's
the
it.
strongest front seven, because that's the thing is the cornerbacks and safeties have so much value now as far as like a team perspective that linebackers are just as valuable as running backs, which means they have none. And defensive linemen are the most valuable in the position group. So defensive linemen get all the money, and then linebackers get nothing. And these front sevens, that's why Christian Kirksey just got dropped, completely cut, team captain
That's
last
shocking,
year.
though. Yeah, that is shocking, especially with D'Amico coming in as a rookie head coach. Like, you would think you kind of want to keep those captains in place, but
Yep.
then again, it's one of
Maybe
those to where, hey,
new culture.
maybe Christian, he did right by him, and he's a vet in the league, and he's not really wanting to be there for a rebuild and for some losing seasons. So he did right by him, let him go find a new job somewhere and try to latch on with a contender. Because D'Amico played in the league. He knows what it's like to be a vet and to be stuck on a team that's just not going anywhere. Like, so, I mean, that to me, that's what that signals. It's not necessarily they let go of their captain. It's D'Amico did right by him to allow him to go to greener pastures and not be forced to just waste out the rest of his career on a squad that they're just not going to win the next couple years.
Which D'Amico was there. He's been that player in that exact same situation. So I think that he has some insight into that, and I'm sure that he's not trying to, harm Christian Kirksey in any way. It's crazy to me that in my eyes, and it's because of the top tier value, this is one of the best divisions in football for fantasy football value and talent. And it's not the value, it's the talent. You're not going to get a lot of value because everyone that you really want to have, you have to take so early. The players you're going to get value on are like Mostert, Achane, like maybe like a couple of these guys. The Jets.
I mean, Tyreek, you get great value there in the first round.
You're saving so much capital. That's
between the
saying.
Dolphins,
yeah, but
Jets,
he's one of those guys.
Between the Dolphins, Jets, and Bills, the top tier talent is elite by fantasy standards.
Yep.
But I do see it's, if you miss out on those top guys within the first 4 rounds, it's slim pickings after that. Like you're hoping for handcuffs. It's all handcuffs.
This is not the year to be like, I have to have a Dolphins player. I have to have one. Like,
now I put them on my roster at the end so I can kind of keep track of what they're doing throughout the season and just be, solid little 13-point outing from you today. Good job, Raheem. Like little things like that. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Outside for the Dolphins, I told you, outside of Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle, I'm not really looking to draft any of them. Mostert falls on my lap, cool. In a PPR, A-Chain falls on my lap, which A-Chain's the highest running back out of the 3 that's getting drafted. And in a PPR, that's where his value is. He's going to come in and be that third down back. I can easily see A-Chain, especially like the first half of the season. He gets 3 to 4 carries, but he also has 3 to 4 receptions.
If you had the opportunity,
it's a good way to push him through.
Sorry, to take Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle, would you? First round, Hill. Second round, Waddle, and then you get to a 8th, 10th round, something like that. Would you take that?
I already said he's not going to be my starting quarterback, but yeah, I would take that.
That's one of those, you're risking it for the ultimate biscuit. Like, that's what that is.
If he stays healthy, those 2 receivers are going to be top 15.
Not even that. Think back, like I brought it up, think back to the Chargers game or the 49ers game. Like, if you have a game like that and those are your top 3 guys, you just lost that week by a mile. And that's because you literally put all your eggs into one literal basket, like the Dolphins basket, but it's one of those where Tua stays healthy. They have an elite offense all year. You very well might win your league just because of those 3 guys. So it's one of those where it's the ultimate risk. But if you're playing in 10 different leagues or Austin, 27 leagues, like, yeah, I would I would do a draft to where I try to do something like that. Why not? Just see how it works out.
So how do you
it cost a second and a third to get Hill and Waddle. This year, it cost a first and a second, and that's because of how
First and a late
freaking
second,
ridiculously good it was last year. So I think that it's still worth it. This will be the last year it'll be worth it, because after this, Waddle will, if Waddle has 1,500 yards plus with 5 or 6 touchdowns or more, then he's going to be a first round pick next year. Like he's
but
just gonna have to
there's
be.
no way that 2 receivers get picked in the first round from one team. There's just no way.
If Waddle wasn't wide receiver 2 on the Dolphins, if Tyreek was not on the Dolphins or Waddle was wide receiver 1 somewhere else, I think he would be back into the first round type of guy. I mean, him and Tyreek both played 17 games. Tyreek 1,700 yards, Waddle 1,350. Waddle led the league in yards per catch with 18.1. Waddle 79 or 80 yards per game, Tyreek at 100, Waddle 8 touchdowns, Tyreek 7. The kicker, Tyreek had 170 targets. Waddle had 117. So for my money, Waddle did more with the targets and the receptions that he had. I mean, you're looking at 30 to almost 40 less receptions, almost 60 less targets. And
That's
he
a
was
lot.
still with him in almost every statistical category. Like, so for me, hot take, if you give them the same amount of looks this year, I think Waddle has a more productive year than Tyreek this year. And I think
it's
that's just the
possible.
trajectory of their seasons. Tyreek's pushing over 30. Waddle's in his 3rd season coming up. Like, you expect to see that level out there because they're essentially the same type of player. So if you miss on Tyreek in the first round, like, Waddle's a great consolation prize.
Especially, dude, 1 pick after Garrett Wilson, that's when you're getting Waddle. Garrett Wilson goes, Waddle's the next player. So, like, you don't even have to spend a bunch of capital to get him. He's the player that I'm trying the hardest to get. It's hard to get him because he has to fall to you. I don't want Waddle over Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, that's probably where he falls on my wide receiver tier, is 1 spot after Amon-Ra. And that's like, if I'm wrapping around at the end of the first round into the second, Waddle's a little bit too early to take. You have to be in that mid-round pick area or even the end of the second, like Austin was saying.
Yeah, you're getting like Chris Olave and Devontae Smith. And those are great value guys, but like
Taking
those
both
are
of
the
those guys
3
after Waddle.
Those are the 3 receivers that you'll find in that late second round, and it depends on how you took in the first round, whether you went running back or wide receiver. But
I
like,
think
those
there
are
is
great
an
value.
argument for Garrett Wilson over Waddle, though, just simply
100%.
because he's the number 1 on his team. Now,
No,
you're
nobody said
hoping,
not.
yeah, you're hoping that, you know, the connection with Aaron Rodgers is going to be there out of the gate for him. But I mean, dude put up 1,000 yards, 13 yards per catch, like only 4 touchdowns. But look who he was working with as his quarterbacks all year. Like Garrett Wilson, especially towards the end of the year, like he was putting up Justin Jefferson style fantasy points. Like he was blowing it up last year. Like for me, it's one of those to where somebody jumps on Waddle early and Garrett Wilson falls. I'm not mad at all. But and also as a Dolphins fan, that's one of those where if they're both sitting on the board for me, I can't just pull the trigger on Waddle. Like that's one of the, I'm really gonna have to think about it and put my homerism aside and just, you know, Waddle is the more explosive guy, but I think Garrett Wilson is the better all around wide receiver.
He's gonna have more targets. He's gonna have 15 targets
That
a game.
too.
Waddle can't get that. It's not possible because of Hill. It's not any other mouths to feed. That's what's nice about it, is that at least they got rid of Gesicki, and Wilson's not really a mouth to feed. Erica Zakama, all these young guys, they're just going to help the offense produce. But they're not guys that are requiring 5 or 6 targets a game. Nobody besides Hill and Waddle is. I think that we've given
hold
all
on. Before we wrap up, we've all said, you know, we all agreed Patriots are finishing 4th in the division. Everybody thinks so. Like, so which means they're probably not going to. They'll end up finishing like
agreed.
2nd. So
and the Jets will finish 4th. I agree.
But so, and realistically though, How do y'all see that this division falling this year? Is the Bills again? Are they getting jumped? Is somebody else going to reign supreme in the AFC East? Don't be shocked to see the Bills, Dolphins, and Jets all three be in the playoffs this year. Don't be shocked.
I wouldn't be shocked
that the Dolphins have the most talented team and coaching staff. I think that if you put everything together, adding Vic Fangio on top of us having, last year we had a top 10 offense.
The Dolphins depth scares me so bad, though. Like
there's
the
injury concern, but that's on any team. And
yes,
we don't truly know what those guys
everywhere.
look like yet, because mid-season, whenever a Patriots player or a Chiefs player comes into the lineup, you can't tell the difference. Those guys are all coached up so well, they're all so ready that come mid-season, next man up mentality works. So I feel you. We don't have a bunch of top-tier talent on our bench.
No, it's the depth in the trenches. The offensive line, the starting offensive line is you're hoping for improvement. There's no depth behind that. And the starting defensive line is borderline elite, but behind that you have just prey. Like, so that's my problem with the Dolphins.
We've got guys on that aren't Chubb and Phillips that are going to be able to have out. Between Raekwon Davis, Sealer, Ogba, like that right there, I'm happy that those guys are all backups. Like that we've got, Christian and Chubb and Jalen out there. Like that is very solid in my eyes. I think that the
Raekwon and Sealer are they're starters.
Raekwon's a defensive tackle, so like he's going to be starting alongside Christian, but he's not really a starter. Him and Sealer kind of back. Whichever
they
one
run.
Of them
well, they run a 3-4. So you've got Raekwon in the middle, and then you've got Wilkins and Sealer as the quote unquote big defensive end.
Chubb,
and then you've got Chubb, and that's why Chubb and Jalen Phillips are allowed to wear the jersey numbers they are, because they're listed as outside linebackers.
Gotcha. That's funny.
So you've got
I think
the
Dolphins, Bills, Jets, Patriots. That just seems the most logical to me.
See, Dolphin fans are gonna shit on me, but I think it's Jets.
He just turned the camera off.
I think it's Jets, Dolphins, Bills, Patriots. I think the Bills, this is the year you see them start to take that step back. I think this is the year you see a lot of pressure on them because of the hype that they've been getting the last couple years. And with the Jets, just looking at their team, looking at that defense, the only weak spot is the offensive line. And that's mostly just if those guys can't stay healthy. If healthy, they've got a top 15 offensive line. So for me, the weapons they added and the quarterback that they have now, it's very hard without being a homer to be able to put the Dolphins above the Jets this year. Also, just because I need to see that upgrade in Mike McDaniel to know that he's going to be able to adjust mid-game when things aren't happening and going the way they need to go for him.
Are you talking about the Vape God?
Vape God.
I feel that. Because that was our issue last year. The San Fran game, the Chargers game, the Green Bay game. Like, we just got out coached at the end, and like we're losing games because of that. That's not straight. I think that Mike McDaniel is such a guy about looking inward. I don't know if you guys have heard, but he's completely sober, like 100% sober, no alcohol and or other activities. So I think that having that type of mindset going into this year that's huge for me. Like, to see that he's like locked in. He realizes that he could have been better last year.
I think that was a story when he got hired too, is he's been sober for a few years. Like when he was with the 49ers, they helped him get sober.
I heard him talk about it in a interview on the Dolphins, that last year, like, drinking, blah, 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 blah. So, I think that from a coach's standpoint, right, they're not supposed to be humans. Sean McVay is not a human being. That's why he has a Super Bowl ring. So I don't mind my coach not being cool and chill. I'd rather him be a freaking weirdo because that
Your
means that I'm going to get a
your
Super Bowl
coach
ring.
is one of the chillest and coolest though. Like, have you ever
Yeah,
seen one of his interviews? He
I've
literally
seen
is like
almost every one of them.
taking like his time with all his words, and he's the
So,
chillest.
how's the division finishing for you, Austin?
Oh, we got. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is gonna take that team to the glory, baby. We got Jets at first,
Jets
then we
at
got the
first.
Dolphins, then the Bills, and then the
Oh.
Patriots.
Yo,
I
you put
recognize
the
talent.
Bills third. You're wearing that
Yeah,
jersey, dog.
but I'm not
I'm
saying that they gonna make the playoffs, but like if Tua stays healthy, I think this team's got what it takes.
Hey, man,
Um,
I'm just saying he's staying
I,
healthy.
like for
We're
y'all
committed now.
when y'all are drafting for defenses in fantasy, are y'all because these four teams actually are pretty solid defenses all around.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm going to
What
be
would you?
honest. Every year for the last 5 years, I've just been trying to get the Dolphins defense.
And
Like, I don't want
that's
to be
a
a
homer
homer,
thing.
but I
Yeah,
just I'm happy with that. Like, that's enough for me. If I get the Dolphins defense, then like, hey, we're straight. So
Any four of these teams, you take one of
yeah,
their defenses as your team defense, I think you're fine.
you're
Any
gonna get
four.
New England the latest this year, especially over the past like couple of years. You're gonna get New England the latest of the four. I think the Jets is probably the one that could have the most potential spark.
Mm-hmm.
Vic
yeah.
Fangio taking over the Dolphins, though, no one knows what this is going to look like. Guy hasn't coached in over a year. He's got these two. He gets to rejoin with with Bradley Chubb, and now he gets to play with Jalen Phillips too. So I think that the Dolphins could be a very scary defense. You're going to get to see it week one versus the Chargers. If the Chargers offense isn't able to put up Chargers offense type numbers, 300 yards passing, with another 80 on the ground, that's going to be because of the Dolphins, not because of the Chargers.
So betting wise, you guys throwing your money on the Dolphins? You think they actually take that dub? Like
If
actually a good matchup that I can't really
North
safely
Carolina
put my
had
money on.
futures bets right now, then I would have already put in a bet that they make it to the Super Bowl, $50. Like, I think that it's a potential that's such a good potential that it's worth putting a bet in. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's
I
not like
mean,
I'm going to put my whole paycheck, but
I
I
mean,
think that it could
this
happen.
is the best year you guys have looked in a long time,
In the
long
past
time.
20.
And
Past
same with the
20
Jets
years.
though, which is scary. Since I've been alive, the Jets have never had a quarterback of this tier of caliber. Like
No,
this dude is going to do some special things over there.
no,
It
they've
sucks
never
for
had
the
a
defense.
They've
quarterback
never,
of
even
this
when they
tier.
had Brett
Like
Favre,
Never.
they didn't
Joe
have Aaron
Namath.
Rodgers.
Joe Namath. Well, not even that, but at this stage in their careers, Aaron Rodgers is
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Like Brett Favre was effective, took the Vikings to the playoffs, went to the playoffs,
Took them to the
or
AFC Championship game.
just missed the playoffs with the Jets. But yeah, I mean, like, so
No. He took
was
the Jets
effective.
to an AFC Championship game. He
Brett
was with the
Favre-
Jets for 2 years. His first year, he took them to an AFC Championship game. His second year, they were horribles, and then they got Mark Sanchez. And the year after, I think, 2 years later is when they win again. I'm pretty
That's
sure that he
really
took them to an
weird
AFC
that
Championship game.
Favre went to the Vikings first though.
Yeah, right away. Right away.
Super
That
weird.
was a funny one.
But-
All right, boys.
So next week, you got next Monday is your birthday, so happy early birthday to you.
Thank
And
you. It'll be Labor Day for everybody else. So.
You gonna be with us next week, or is it me and Austin riding solo?
I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna be traveling on Sunday, and then like everyone else is basically trying to like get back by Monday. So I should be able to make it back here by 8. That's my plan. That's what I'm gonna try to have happen so that we can cover the
NFC South is the last division for us, and then we've got Week 1 preview.
Nice. So
So-
that is for everyone that's still
Well, the
staying.
Thursday night preview, I guess, because we'll be back Friday, right? We're starting next Friday.
Yeah, so next Friday is going to be our first Friday episode. We're going to release an episode live on Monday, and then live on Friday, we're going to do a review of the previous week on Monday, and then we're going to preview the coming week on Friday. So that on Friday, we can give you guys who to start, who to sit, who's the plays. This defense against the wide receivers is a no-go, that type of stuff, just to help you win some championships later. All we ask is you don't tell any of your friends about us this year, but next year, go ahead and share the information, all right? So, thanks for listening. Go to TulsiRoseTea.com to get all your tea needs, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Like and subscribe.
All
right
those
there.
things.
Right there.
Over there.
All right, boys. Until next week. Peace.